Yeah, I think where it has mostly been in the opportunity to bond with people in the industry. Um, Certainly in the Bay Area where I've started most of my businesses, it's really a non-issue, and in fact, it can even be a plus because there's so much networking within the gay world there. But like there was an instance where a couple, a guy who was very senior at Facebook and has moved on to an even bigger role elsewhere. As a guy, a really good guy to know, very smart guy. I've known him for 10 years. And, he and another guy I know went on kind of this stag trip to Las Vegas. And I wasn't invited and didn't know about it and found out afterwards and it was fine. But, you know, I think they wouldn't have felt comfortable with me being there because it was kind of a stag male bonding thing. And I probably wouldn't have been comfortable in it. The other thing that happens is increasingly, I've chosen not to have kids. I realize you can have kids as a gay adult, but I've chosen not to. And increasingly, people's lives center around their families and social calendars. So I think there's just stuff that maybe I'm not as connected with people because I don't set up play dates with their kids and my kids and all that kind of stuff. So there's some social aspects maybe that I miss out on, but there's never been any sort of problem with anyone finding out that I was gay and suddenly not wanting to do business with me or not wanting to fund me. Or, in fact, typically what happens, because I was afraid to tell people, but when I finally told people at Wine Shopper, the management team, it was amazing. It really was amazing. And I was in a fraternity in college and, have learned how to sort of fit into a very male-dominated environment and was just fine at it. So I tend to just slip into that. But, what I don't do anymore is I don't feign interest in sports because I'm simply not. And I don't feign interest in girls because I'm simply not. And so whereas up until maybe even 10 years ago, I would sort of, jump in on those conversations and it just felt so wrong, right? So I think that's the only issue is maybe just missing out on some bonding opportunities with people that are straight oriented, like family stuff and stuff. But other than that, not really an issue. I looked at that question and my favorite business icon is Steve Jobs in terms of the role model, and he's not gay. But I couldn't think of anyone in the business world that I knew was gay, and that I think is telling, right? Because I'm sure that some of these very successful business people that are out there are gay, but they're not out, and so that's why it's difficult to answer that question in the business world because, I know. Confidentially, so I won't say, but I can think of 5 major household name companies where I know either the CEO or very senior people who are gay, and but they're very careful about it. And so, I think the business world is kind of the last frontier, I think, for that kind of diversity to really take hold. And it's a I don't know. It's interesting. It also is very regional. I think it's a big difference if you're trying to do business in perhaps a more conservative part of the country than it would be if you're doing business in San Francisco or New York, where really it is completely a non-issue. It's just irrelevant. Yeah, there are issues. I mean, certainly, I think in the Arab world, for example, I think it would be very challenging. And China, I don't know as much about their views on homosexuality, but I imagine not great. The bottom line is that business, unless you're in the sex business, there is no reason to mix sex and business. And just like in the straight world, it would be inappropriate in a meeting to discuss your fetishes or something like that. And your wife and all, you just don't talk about it. And so it really doesn't need to be relevant, and it doesn't need to be discussed. And it would be weird. I actually, I've always been of the belief that I should just be myself, and if someone asks me, "Are you gay?" I will answer them honestly, but I'm not going to broadcast it necessarily, because it's a personal characteristic of me. I was made this way, and it's nothing that I need to rub in everybody's face. I mean, it's just it's an aspect of me. I have no problems with it. I'm proud of myself, but it isn't something I need to wear on my sleeve. And so I just can't think of, in 20 years of doing business in some form, I can't think of any situation where it's ever come up in any kind of meeting with, big companies, Sony, Dell, Staples, all sorts of big corporations I've met with, New York Times, and it just never comes up, which is great.